The Green Bay Packers are the youngest team in the NFL, and yet they seem to pull hamstrings and hurt their backs more often than senior citizens trying to play softball or work out at the gym. More water. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Lombardi Time Brews, where I'm your host, John Delray. Today, looking ahead at the Packers versus Saints Week 3 matchup, the home opener of the Green Bay Packers finally getting to play a game at Lambeau Field. Jordan Love making his first start as the official QB1 in Lambeau Field. Should be some nice weather, at least as it looks right now as I'm recording, but of course these things are due to change. But still, the home opener, one of the most exciting times of year in Green Bay. I'm very excited to see the sunlight over the golden helmets, all of the things that we've come to love about the home opener in Green Bay. Today, I'm going to be taking a look at the New Orleans Saints, the visiting team, the 2-0 Saints, talking about who are they coached by? What are their tendencies? What are they good at? Versus what are they not so good at? And then what are the keys to victory for the Green Bay Packers trying to get back on the winning track following last week's loss to the Atlanta Falcons? But first, an injury update for you, and it's a lengthy update. Let's just leave it at that. Let's go with the Green Bay Packers side first. David Bakhtiari, Christian Watson, Aaron Jones, Lucas Van Ness, they're all officially questionable. Now, Jones and Watson, they did practice today. Yeah, it was limited, but they did practice today. So certainly seeming to be trending in the right direction. In terms of David Bakhtiari, when Matt LaFleur was asked in what was maybe the quickest press conference ever today, like I'm not kidding, LaFleur's press conference today was like 2 minutes. When he was asked about Bakhtiari again, it was short, sweet, and kind of a cranky answer from LaFleur. But if Bakhtiari's good, he'll go. That's what we know. However, there was one new addition to the injury report for the Green Bay Packers today, and that would be all-world corner Jair Alexander. Yeah, not coming off of his greatest game, but nonetheless still one of the most important cogs in the Packers defense. He tweaked something in his back. Matt LaFleur said that his back was acting up, and they're going to continue to monitor it. Nonetheless, he officially gets the questionable tag. And then on the outside of things, of course, Elton Jenkins, who we knew was going to be out this week, but then also depth safety special team ace Zane Anderson out with a hamstring injury. Notably, on the positive side of injury things for the Packers, Rashawn Gary did not receive an injury designation at all. His first time this year that he did not receive any type of designation. Now let's take a look at the Saints side of things, because the Saints aren't exactly also a healthy team. First of all, they've got 2 suspensions that they're still dealing with. One would be starting safety Marcus May, the other running back Alvin Kamara. Out for the Saints would be their other running back, Jamal Williams, former Packer. He is not going to be playing in Lambeau. Getting the doubtful tag would be tight end Foster Moreau, operating predominantly thus far as their number 2 tight end. Nonetheless, doesn't look like he's going to go, which means you can expect perchance some more Jimmy Graham as he continues his resurrection in the National Football League, or more opportunities at the tight end spot for Taysom Hill. Maybe that's where he'll have to go because of depth purposes. Getting questionable tags, though, 2 new injuries for the Saints that creeped up over the last 48 hours. One would be starting corner Paulson Adebo, who has a new hamstring injury that Packer fans are all too familiar with. Nonetheless, he's got a hamstring injury. He's marked as questionable for Sunday. In addition, Ugo Amadi, another defensive back of theirs, had a knee injury yesterday, officially receiving the questionable tag. So the Saints secondary, one of the strengths of their team, quickly getting injured, suspended, whatever, not their premium lineup that's going to be out there on Sunday. So let's take a look at those New Orleans Saints, shall we? They're 2-0 on the season. How did they get there? Well, wins over both the Titans and Panthers. Their combined point differential from those 2 wins would be +4. So not exactly blowout wins of any sort, 2 narrow wins. They're coached by Dennis Allen, who is in his second year. Last year, they were 7-10 under Allen's helm. And yes, if that name does sound familiar, it is the same guy who was hired at a really young age for the Oakland Raiders years ago when Mark Davis just first took over. Yeah, it's the same Dennis Allen, who now is head coach of the Saints. Offensive coordinator would be Pete Carmichael, and defensive coordinator in his first year for the Saints would be Joe Woods. How are these Saints different than last year's in terms of their roster? Well, they lost a lot of people in free agency, and not necessarily by numbers, but in terms of snap count, in terms of their role in the defense specifically, they lost Marcus Davenport, David Onyemata, and Caden Ellis. Onyemata and Ellis, two players the Packers have already faced on the new teams of the year. But then the Saints, to make up for those losses, did add a number of players as well. First of all, they have a new starting quarterback coming to them from the free agent realm, Derek Carr. They also have a new running back in the form of Jamal Williams, who isn't going to play in this game. Jarvis Landry signed there as a free agent wide receiver. And then you've also got the two replacements on their interior defensive line now in the form of Kalen Saunders and Nathan Shepard. In the draft, they spent high draft picks on interior defensive lineman Brian Brees, edge defensive end. The Saints do run a 4-3, so he's more of a defensive end when it comes to the Saints, but that would be Isaiah Foskey. They also spent a pick on Kendre Miller in the third round, who's going to be probably the featured running back on Sunday. And then, much too many Packer fans' angst, they chose wide receiver A.T. Perry. He was a late round pick. He hasn't done a ton yet this season for the Saints, but I mentioned him because a lot of Packer fans did feel as though A.T. Perry would be an exemplary fit in Green Bay, but he's a Saint. So what are the New Orleans Saints good at? Defense. All of it. That's just the truth of it. They're a very, very good defensive team under Dennis Allen's helm. He's considered a defensive coach. It's paying off for the Saints. The truth is, going up and down this roster, like they've got studs on the defense. Marshawn Lattimore, Demario Davis, a bunch of household names defensively up and down the entire lineup. And then next to them, they've got a bunch of guys who the casual fans may look at and go, who? But the truth is, they're very complementary pieces to those stars. It's one cohesive unit, one of the best defenses in the NFL. And actually, if you dig far enough into this, head coach Dennis Allen, years ago when he was still kind of rising through the ranks in New Orleans, rebuilding his reputation, but he was defensive coordinator for Sean Payton years ago. And the Saints had a decision to make because the defense was very much in flux. And so there's an article out there from NFL.com where Dennis Allen basically said to the Saints, hey, trust me, I have a vision for what this defense should look like. And then they did. And they went out and got all of the perfect role players. They weren't drafting because of college production. They were drafting because of traits that Dennis Allen wanted in each individual spot in the defense. And here now in 2023, as well as in 2022, when they were a very good defense, we're seeing this pay off. They are a very good defense. In fact, over the last 10 straight games, they have yet to give up over 20 points to an offense. Yeah, 10 straight games of holding offenses to under 20 points. Now, granted, we're only 2 games into this season. I kind of pulled back into last season for that, but only 2 games into this year, so averages don't exactly hold a ton of weight at this point. Nonetheless, let's take a look at where they are. This team ranks 14th in allowing rushing yards per game, 7th in passing yards per game allowed, yet in total yards per game allowed, they rank 5th. They also average 2 turnovers per game. They had 1 in one game, 3 in another, but they do log a 9.46 sack percentage, good for 7th in the NFL. In addition, they've mustered 22 pressures and 17 quarterback hits. The real stars of this defense, that would be the secondary. Yes, May, their center fielder, he's out. Nonetheless, in that secondary alone, you still have Marshawn Lattimore and Tyrann Mathieu, still one of the best box safeties in the NFL. Lattimore himself has already been credited with 5 pass breakups at this point in the season already. But this is also where their absences come into play. Without Marcus May, their starting center fielder for all intents and purposes, as that may be giving some playing time then to Jordan Howden or vet Lonnie Johnson. Someone is going to be filling in there. We just don't know yet who. And if Adebo and Amadi can't go, that means they're getting farther and farther into their depth quickly. And maybe that secondary won't be as good, but still, if you're looking for the strength of the Saints defense, it's the secondary note about it. Well, what do they do offensively? This isn't the same like Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram offense of years past. It's also not the same Drew Brees chucking it to the slant master Michael Thomas. It's not that either. This version of the Saints wants to push the ball down the field by utilizing Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and Derek Carr's arm strength, they want to push the ball down the field. But thus far this season, they haven't been able to go that deep that often. Yes, they still get their fair share of explosive plays, but they haven't been able to push the way that they want to. And that leads us to some of the negatives for the Saints. Why can't they go with that deep ball? Well, pretty simple. They can't protect Derek Carr. If they go that deep, they can't protect him. According to PFF, they are the 26th ranked offensive line in terms of pass protection in the NFL, already allowing 8 sacks. If you want to go by ESPN's pass block win rate, then they're 28th in the NFL. So what do they do instead? They try to get the ball out quickly. Derek Carr currently has the 10th quickest release rate in the NFL per PFF. And they've attempted to find success through this short passing attack, this quick game, especially as their run game has stuttered. The Saints rank 17th in total rushing yards per game, but 24th in yards per carry. That tells you right there that while they are running the ball a lot, it is a core part of this offense. They're going to run the ball a lot. They're not necessarily doing it well or efficiently. And this coming Sunday is a whole different level of question, considering that Kendre Miller is going to be getting his first game action of his career. And Tony Jones just got signed off of the practice squad. Yeah, these are some new guys that are going to be toting the football for the Saints. So what are the keys to victory for the Green Bay Packers? Well, 1, get after them quickly. Please. The pressure allowed number for the Saints, the ranking for the Saints offensive line, looking at where their left tackle stands and ranks of pass blocking, looking at where their center, where their right tackle. I mean, their right tackle is very good, but like still on the whole, this Saints offensive line doesn't exactly do exemplary work in blocking the pass rush. And for the Packers, that has Rashawn Gary and company salivating. The Packers thus far have gotten 61 pressures so far this season. Now, Atlanta got them into trouble because while the Packers were getting all those pressures, the Packers also got over-aggressive, over-pursued at times. And then Ritter, being a mobile quarterback, dumping it off to Bijan, who's very, very shifty. You see where this goes. The Packers fell for a number of plays, play action, option, things that the Falcons did as well. Well, so for the Packers, get after Derek Carr. I'm not afraid of their backfield like I was with Atlanta having Bijan Robinson. I'm also not concerned about Derek Carr taking off and running it like Desmond Ritter did. So I think that this can be a game where the pass rushers do pin their ears back and just go after the quarterback a little bit more than I would have recommended against Atlanta, and then look at how that turned out. It doesn't necessarily mean blitz, because if you do get into too many blitzes, if you get into too many looks, the Saints will unleash their shot plays. And the Saints are pretty good at it if they're not covered well. And especially if Jair Alexander's out of the game, well, you can see how that may go for the Packers. Now, look, speaking of coverage, Joe Barry's never going to call a ton of man defense. His philosophy, overall, the Fangio scheme, even if you want to look at other schemes that Barry has his philosophy rooted in, a lot of them are very zone-based. Still, though, the Saints are one team that I would consider utilizing a little bit more of a man-heavy approach. I talked about Chicago and Atlanta. Those are zone teams. Like, you just stay back in zone and don't mess it up. And then they kind of messed it up against Atlanta. But still, against the Saints, this is one team that I'm not necessarily concerned about their playmakers beating you. What I am a little bit concerned about is getting beat over the top, especially by Olave. So I think that this is one game where man coverage does make some sense. And especially if Olave lines up in the slot, we may see Jair, if he plays, aligned in the slot a little bit more often as well. So take that for what you will. But in my opinion, number one key to victory for the Packers is getting after Derek Carr, especially in a natural way that doesn't overutilize the blitz. And then coverage, I would expect to see some man. And then number two, what do the Packers have to do offensively? Reinvigorate the quick and short pass. Yeah, I read earlier the pass rush numbers for the Saints. They're not as good at it as the Packers. No, definitely not. But they do get after the quarterback quite effectively. And for the Packers offensive line, which we don't know who's going to be out there starting, it does raise some questions. Nonetheless, it still very much is a pass blocking unit, but still, you don't want to test fate too much. And nonetheless, with the Packers through this point in the season, one of the most underutilized parts of the offense has been the short, quick pass, which you would think is a staple based upon everything that we've seen from years past and given what Matt LaFleur does offensively. We just haven't seen it a ton. And one of the great flaws that people can point to in Jordan Love right now is his completion percentage. And you can believe that the people who want to hate Jordan Love are still very much pointing at that completion percentage. So against the Saints, a defense that is wounded in certain areas of the field or suspended in another area of the field, and with guys that are so good in coverage, if you're going to pass the ball, get it out quick and do high completion throws. This is one game where the Packers must utilize their speed. They are overall a faster team than the Saints. This is one game where that has to be utilized. And I'm not just talking outright like 40 speed. I'm talking even initial quickness around the line. This is where Christian Watson and Aaron Jones, if they are both able to return, could mean huge things in this game for the Packers' offensive scheme. Watson being able to go vertical, using the 40 speed to spread out the defense a bit more, get the pass coverage backed up for the Saints, where then you can use Aaron Jones underneath and utilize his speed and his quickness and his shiftiness to churn out extra yards. Neither Lattimore nor Adebo, if he plays, have given up over a 55% completion rate to opposing quarterbacks yet this year. That, to me, is the key offensively to really move the chains in this game. You have to get over that 55% threshold. Also, the Saints are not nearly as good at defending the run as they are the pass, but still, given the deficiencies of the Packers' run blocking unit thus far, given the fact that Aaron Jones, even if he plays, isn't going to be at 100% health, I still don't think that this is a game where you trot out a super run-heavy game plan. So look to, again, use the short pass almost as a substitution for that instead. This is the kind of team that the Packers are built to beat. The Saints have an excellent pass rush. Well, that's fine. The Packers have a pass blocking O-line. Now, part of this is a little exaggerated because we don't know who's going to be out there, but let's say David Bakhtiari plays. All right, Packers have got one of the best pass blocking units in the NFL. If David Bakhtiari doesn't play, they're still an above average pass blocking unit. They're built to stop a good pass rush like the Saints. The Saints want to beat you offensively with the pass. The Packers' defense is entirely predicated on stopping the long ball and pressuring the quarterback. The Saints aren't great at running. That's fine. Packers can't defend it, so that works out just fine. And the Saints defense historically seemingly has struggled the most when the opposing offense can work underneath and stretch, which is exactly what the Packers are built to do. Overall, in terms of a final prediction, in spite of the injuries, this is a game, because of roster construction, that the Packers are built to win. Yes, the Saints are going to be a very worthy adversary. They are a very veteran team. The Packers have their vet stars, the Saints have theirs. And the Saints by no means are going to roll over easy. They are a very good football team. Nonetheless, though, if the Packers play like the Packers are built to do, they should be able to win. I expect Aaron Jones to play in this game. I expect Christian Watson to play in this game. Given Matt LaFleur's answers in the press conference today, referencing Jair's back acting up, and they're going to keep an eye on it, I would also kind of expect him to play as well. Matt LaFleur didn't sit back and say, like, it's really serious. He didn't say that it's an injury, so his back was acting up. So I'm kind of leaning on all that to say that I'm expecting Jair to play. Bakhtiari? I doubt David Bakhtiari really knows at this point whether he's playing or not. And in spite of all those injuries, if the Packers play like they're built to play, this is a game that they should win. Point, though, this is a matchup to be respected. Make no doubt about that. But opening at Lambeau? Yeah. At noon? Yeah. It's the Packers' time to shine. Packers 24, Saints 20. As always, we'll be here on Sunday for a watch party. Me for the first half, Claudia, partner and pod partner in life, joining for the second half of the matchup. So please check out our watch party. As always, no Packer fan should have to watch a game alone if they don't want to. And if you find yourself in that spot, we're here. We will be here for you to watch the game with you and enjoy Packers football. Thanks so much for checking out Lombardi Time Brews. I'll be back on Sunday. And as always, go Pack Go.